It's another Saturday morning. We're blessed with life. Welcome to Inside Pages with me, Francisca Kakra-Forson. We have a very interesting conversation prepared for you today. We were inspired by American hip-hop musician 50 Cent's 2008 album, which he titled Get Rich or Die Trying. This is the conversation that we want to have. Get rich or die trying. We'll be asking the question, why are we obsessed with making money, and sometimes at all costs? We'll look at whether or not we can exist in a capitalist world without money. We'll also talk about the desire for a quick buck, which is a major fallout from the recent Kaswa murder where an 11-year-old boy was killed. With our guests, we'll be looking at how we got here as a society. We'll be having a conversation about parenting, education, religion, the media, fake lifestyles, and then we'll try and wrap up by answering this question. Has our greed reached pathological levels? I hope the answer will not be in the affirmative. But this is the conversation we have planned for Inside Pages this morning. I'm Francisca Kakra-Forson. We'll take a quick break. We'll be back. Today we'll take Ghana Moment to the latter part of the show because we want to have a conversation about Dumsor with you on that. But right now, let me introduce my guests. In the studio with me, I have Madame Linda Asante-Adjei. She's the Vice President of the GJA. Good morning to you. It's good to see you again.
Good morning.
Hope you're well. We also Great. We also have Benjamin Antiedu. He's a lawyer and a legal researcher and also an author. Benjamin, good morning and welcome.
Good morning.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Adib Sani is a foreign policy and security analyst. Good morning and welcome to Inside Pages. I think it's your first time on Inside Pages.
Yes, but certainly not my first time.
Not on Metro, yes.
Exactly. Good to be here, though.
Thanks for joining us. Later on, we'll also be joined by the Minister of Information, Kojo Oppong-Nkrumah, as well as Bright Appiah, the Executive Director of Child Rights International. We have Philip Ofori Yentumi. He's a psychiatric mental health practitioner. And another interesting guest, a spiritualist. His name is Malam Zaki. He'll be joining us for this conversation about getting rich or dying as you try. I'll start with you, Lawyer Benjamin. And this is because over the week you provided some education on the prosecution and sentencing of juvenile offenders. And our conversation is a major fallout from this rather horrific and sad incident where two teenagers allegedly killed an 11-year-old boy. And from their conversations with the police prosecution, it emerged that they had been induced by the content of what they were watching on TV, some kind of offering of quick money by some ritualists, and they later got in touch with one of them, who we understand is in police grips. But tell us, really, when it comes to prosecution and sentencing of juvenile offenders, in this case, we have a 16-year-old and an 18-year-old. So give us the education as to how the prosecution should go.
Okay, thank you. We start on this very sad note about the killing of Ishmael. The whole country, your good self, shocked by this. This is something that we have to take a bold step and fight it from all angles so that we re-engineer ourselves. So directly on the question, you know, we have the Juvenile Justice Act of 2003, Act 653, which governs the whole procedure, the trial of young persons under 18 years of age. When they commit offenses, that is the law that regulates them. And before that, let me say that our law also exempts children under 12 years from any offense. So if you are less than 12 years and you commit any offense, the law does not recognize that you are free. Okay, so you move from 12 years and under 18. That is where the juvenile justice law will act. So you have two laws here. You have Act 30, which regulates the arrest, trial, and sentencing of adults. Okay, so that is there, and then you have the Juvenile Justice Act also. So in this particular case, I don't know how their ages were established, but the law is clear that you use their birth certificates or their baptismal certificate or a certificate signed by a medical professional. So if that was done as the law requires, that would be fine. So I'm assuming that that has been done, and we have come to the rightful ages as 16 and 18. So you have one being adult, one being a juvenile. So the law allows that for this, they can be tried by the High Court or any trial court, okay? They can be tried together because this is something that connects the two, and separating them will be difficult. But the law requires that they will be tried together, and after trial, when they are convicted, if they are convicted, then it comes to sentencing, the juvenile will be reverted to a juvenile tribunal that will impose the sentencing, but the adult will be dealt with according to law.
For the case of the juvenile, given that he's 16 years, but should it matter? Should his age really matter when this is a capital offense, murder, alleged murder?
Yes. The Juvenile Justice Act, in fact, if you read it, there are so many issues that need to be re-looked at. Of course. So when it comes to even murder, that carries the death penalty under Section 46 of Act 29. When it comes to a juvenile, the maximum sentence that can be imposed is 3 years. And even that, not in a prison, but at a correctional center. You see, so that is the huge gap. I have said that is the distance between the earth and heavens, you know, from death penalty to that kind of thing. And we are talking about the exposure of children of our age. And then 2003, when this law was made, I suppose that it's time that we look at the ages very clearly, because you will hear that you read reports that young people are involved in armed robbery and other things. So we cannot keep that age and go by it. It would have been so disastrous if, let's say, the two were all below 18 years. And then with the public shock, anger, and everything, that is all that we could get at the end of the day if they are convicted.
And given what you mentioned at Section 46 of the Act talks about, if convicted, they're looking at 3 years in a correctional facility. I want to ask this because the family wants justice. We've seen videos of members of the family. They want blood. Will 3 years in a correctional facility suffice for taking someone else's life?
You know, in lawmaking or in the philosophy that underlies the making of laws, you look at vulnerable groups and how you can protect them. Okay, so children are to be given that kid groups, as it said, and then be given the opportunity to be corrected. Okay, that is the foundation of the law, but I'm just saying that the age is too low. But if for the 18-year-old, he is squarely, you know, within the adult group. So upon conviction, he will have to suffer the death penalty. And it's only one. When it comes to death, murder, if you are convicted for murder, there's no other alternative sentencing but for death.
Okay. Let's talk about one of the things you've highlighted. A juvenile enjoys privacy during arrest. And after that, I'll bring Madam Linda in to talk about how the media has covered it so far. Some of it is key learning for the media, but really explain that to us, this privacy they are entitled to.
Yes, thank you very much. This is a very important point. And if we're going critically by it, then all of us were caught up, you know, by the law. Because, you know, there's a process that precedes actual trial, which is arrest, investigation, you know, prepare of the charge sheet and arraignment before court and all that. And we are saying that for a child, you should not give out any information that will lead to his or her identification by the public. So, but the question is, how can you tell immediately the offense is committed that this child is surely to be within a certain age bracket, unless the child is so young for you to know. But the whole point is that the child can be a subject of attack. And that's why you want to shelve the image. You don't want the public to identify him or her. So whenever you release like the pictures that were just going viral, that was wrong, that was wrong. But in the heat of things, what else could you expect? So looking at the law and practice, usually you have this difficulty. But where, let's say, everything has been done, the child has been arrested in a closet where it didn't allow for public viewing, and then later somebody deliberately goes to release that, I think that is where the law can actually be operative.
And social media makes it worse.
Exactly.
Okay.
I was doing a paper on social media and justice delivery in Ghana, and it's going to be very interesting.
Sounds exciting already.
Yes, a lot of information go on there, which is very good. But when we do with everything we get, we drop it there. Some of them are prejudgmental. Okay, so for something like this, the children were not caught in the act, but the information has gone as if they were caught in the act. Okay, they did what they did if they were the ones seen by somebody else. Okay, but there's another person who saw it. So through cross-examination and all, something else can come out. And you can also say that, yes, there has been some confession of assault by the alleged offenders, but they can say that they did so under, intimidation, threats, and all that. Okay, so it's a whole thing that we have to understand, and that we know that criminal justice has its own procedure.
Another interesting angle to all of this is the question about regulating media content. Within the week, we talked about the Giba versus Attorney General case. We looked at Section 137 of, is it Act 29, the criminal offenses? Yes. I'll come back to you later on that and look at whether or not the media really, in terms of what we are broadcasting, meets the standard and also it's not frowned upon by law. But I'll come to you, Madam Linda. For you, for the GJ, how would you assess the coverage of this incident, this horrific story? It's become a national conversation, and in fact, every media house has been trying to, put the story out there. What's the GJ's assessment of the media's coverage?
Yeah, thank you very much, Francisca. And it's just unfortunate that this should happen, for a young boy at the age of 10 to sacrifice his life for certain laws to be changed, for certain attitudes, to be changed. It's just unfortunate. So our condolences to the bereaved family. I think that this is something that the media has given a wider coverage, and we'll commend the media for what they've done, because they've unearthed certain things that, were not being talked about, or certain things that we have talked about over the years, but we're not getting results. And I think that this is the time for us to see, concrete results out of that. So I think that so far, so good for our media. But as we would say, there are some, odds in there. But I will not attribute that solely to the media, but then social media. Now we have citizen, journalists out there, families and friends. Anybody with a mobile phone can just record and put it out there, share. That doesn't mean that is the fault of the media. Everybody is at fault, the whole society. But then for journalists, in terms of providing coverage, to this whole sad incident, I think that for us as GJ, we'll commend the media for what they've done, coming out with previous experiences that we've talked about, that people have talked about, but we are not seeing results. I think that this is the time, for us to be on the round table and then make sure that we get results so that we will not experience such, a horrific incident again.
Okay. How about, and this will be some kind of self-criticism because we're all in this business. How about how, for instance, we just learning from Lawyer Benjamin, putting out that one of the alleged killers is a minor, and we erroneously put out their names. Yes, the videos of the boys being arrested, etc., or the teenagers being arrested, etc., first popped up on social media. The media eventually published that as well, or broadcast that as well. There were efforts to blur their faces, etc. Is it fair to say that in that score, we didn't do a good job?
Again, I would say that, as you rightly put it, in the heat of event, what will you do? It is unethical, though, in journalism, to show faces and even names of minors, in such incidences. But then, in the heat of events, sometimes we forget about ourselves that this is what we want to do. This is a hot story that everybody would want to get it out there. Everybody would want to be the first, to put it out there. Sometimes we forget that these are minor things that we should, do ethically. But then, in the heat of that moment, what will you do? I think that on that first day, their faces were shown. We all saw it on television. They were put in the buckets of the vehicle. The videos, the cameras were on them. But later on, days after, I have seen on TV, in the news, where they've blurred, their faces. And I think that very day, we all forgot about ourselves. But then, subsequently, we realized that, no, ethically, what we did earlier on was wrong and we need to correct. But once we have seen what we have done and corrected it, I don't think that it will be too hard, to criticize ourselves, because we've realized that on that first day, we made a mistake, but subsequently we are correcting ourselves. It's a mistake, but then we've seen it and we are correcting ourselves. And I think it's a plus for us.
Okay, thank you. Let's get on, is it Zoom or a video call, and speak to Philip Ofori. To me, he's a psychiatric mental health practitioner. Philip, thank you. You're joining us all the way from the US. Good morning to you. I don't know if it's morning there, but welcome to Inside Pages. The question really I want to ask you is about media effect. Okay, there's research that talks about how the media or the content impacts human behavior. Educate us on that.
All right. Good morning, Francisca, and thank you very much for having me on your program. And good morning to your viewers also. Yes, it's morning here, actually 4:37 in Ohio. So, in terms of the media and what we see, human beings are raised by two factors: our genetics and our environment. So, the nature and then the nurture. So in this case, the nurturing environment impacts who we become. So in the case where we see things, right, there is a saying that monkey see, monkey do. So in the case where we see things, we want to emulate those things that we see. Hence, the things that we see on the media, various forms of media, anything at all that we are exposed to, impacts who we become. Therefore, it influences our decisions and what we do on a daily basis.
That's very interesting. Given that there's some influence from, key foundations such as family, such as the church, religion, education, you're going to school, they're telling, your teachers are telling you, don't spend too much time behind the TV, try and read a book or something. Wouldn't you think or say that these other forces would have grounded human behavior in something that would not bring us where we are today?
So I had this conversation with another mental health practitioners, and I was telling them about the influence or the impact of society on us. And one was arguing that if you raise your kids well, you don't have to worry about these. Then my question was, and this is my answer to the question, how many minutes, hours do we spend with our words versus what the community and society spends with them? And when I talk about the time that we spend with them versus that of the community, the one of the community includes while at school, their time on the tablets, their time on TV, their time with friends, their time that we are not really engaging with them. So they may even be in the house, but then we are not engaging with them. So those periods that we are not engaging with them, what are they doing? And all those things that they do impact, affect, influence their decisions. So now, in the case of, yes, you've given your child the right training, but then the impact coming from outside, the forces coming from outside, the the urge to go over what I've been taught becomes stronger. And that is why sometimes we lose them in that period. And then they want to adventure and do other things, which are not what they've been taught at home.
I was reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad some time back, and something interesting the author suggested was that between 6 and 8 or 6 and 9 years, a child's values have been formed and cemented, and at that time, if the number one influence is the media, that's troubling. And given that the economic situation in the world or in this country doesn't make room for parents to spend many hours or a lot of time with their children because they have to work to take care of these children, that's like we're heading into an abyss for this situation.
And that is exactly the point. There is a saying that give me the first 6, 7 years of a child and I'll determine who they become. And that has been very true. And still is true because it still has that magnitude of influence on the formative ages of the child, right? So now, if we are spending these years with the tablets and other gadgets, which teaches them things that are not appropriate, then definitely we are in trouble. And that is where we are right now. You talked about we have to work due to the economic situations. That is very true because you have to work to be able to provide for your family. But I believe that there are certain things that you cannot put monetary value on, and which is the time and training that you can give to your child. So it is a very fine balance between seeking for economic power and also spending quality time and training your child. But that balance is an art that we have to master. If not, then we are clearly leading into a very dangerous ground.
Thank you, and I'll bring you back in the conversation. I want to go to Bright Appiah, who is with Child's Rights International. Bright, I'm sure you have your initial comments on this. I was just reading your press statement, but is it a fair conclusion to say that these teenage boys are victims of this society? They may find themselves in poverty, that's number one, which they are willing to do anything and everything to get out of. Their parents may have failed them on that score. Their parents may have failed them in terms of the value system they've put in place for them. Society, the churches, the mosques, school, we have all failed these boys, and they will be tried for a crime they didn't, act alone in. All of us failed them.
Well, it's not absolute that society would solely be blamed for the act that they have committed, because at a point, children can be responsible for their own actions, and that is what the Juvenile Justice Act says. So therefore, whatever children become or whatever act that they find themselves doing cannot just be a sole decision of society. But however, whatever society gives them, that's what they exhibit. So clearly, if you want to divide into certain percentages, I would say that more or less 75% comes from the basic, the unit system of the family, and then also what society.
So that's a large chunk of it going to the family.
Exactly. So they will be tried because.
But just continue with the breakdown. So 75 goes to the family, the rest.
75 for the unit of the family and then society. So in the society there are all kinds of things that happen. There are a lot of stakeholders. Even now, because of social media, the definition of a community goes beyond the traditional definitions that we give to communities. Because now, when a child has access to the internet, it is also forming another level of community where all kinds of things happen there. But I can say that at least 25% of issues that happens to children must be responsible for it, because I believe that irrespective of what society gives them, there are certain intuitions that children have that they respond to. Especially, they exhibit that intuitions when they ask a lot of questions. When a child comes back from school and the child asks, "Daddy, this is what a friend told me, is it true?" Then it tells you that the child is confused at that stage to know whether what he or she is picking from the environment is the right thing. But it becomes part of the child if you as a parent also fail to provide the right answers to the child. So some of these things also give them space to also reason in terms of the action that they take.
I learned something from conversation with my twin sister, who was an ardent student of psychology, and I'm sure our psychiatrist will speak to that. She told me that all human behavior is learned. And in this situation, so I'm just trying to put that in perspective with regards to this situation, and I'm wondering, if all human behavior is learned, or if most of human behavior is learned, and we're having this conversation about the content that is put down, every parent in their home sitting at this table knows how much children are glued or are attracted. I don't want to say addicted, but there'll be cases where they're addicted to the television. Myself, when I was younger, I had experiences with my parents. They would tell you won't learn anything from the television. And when you grow up, it's not so false what your parents would have said about the things you're watching on the television. There's a lot of crime. There's a lot of, narrowing it to this conversation, there's a lot of spiritualists, money doublers, people making offerings, conjuring money on TV. And in the absence of any supervision, a child who maybe is staying home, doing the right thing, staying home, staying out of trouble, is watching and consuming all of this. Is it really entirely their decision, or they inadvertently or consciously learn that kind of behavior and that kind of desires?
Well, it is true that behavior you acquire through learning, and also because of who you are tempted to behave in a certain way. So clearly, there are a lot of things that are environment that give certain sense. Some way for children to decide to behave in a certain way. So that we cannot take that fact out. So it's whatever we do, definitely children would pick them. So whatever we show on our television, whatever we say, you know, there are certain children that there are certain words, if they utter, they don't see anything wrong with it. There are some when they utter the same words, they feel that no, they are morally, they are not doing the right thing. So all depends on what we have communicated to them with in terms of the information and all that. So we cannot rule out what society gives to children and you see my major concern has to do with the family unit system, you know, because just as you've mentioned, if the unit system is able to cement the behavior pattern of children, it will be very difficult for society to change that pattern. Very, very difficult. You know, so if there's some level of failure at that level, that is where you see society giving them the kind of information that they have and all that. There are some people that, because of the way and manner the family unit system has treated them, once they get to the social space and they realize that no, there are certain things that they're supposed to enjoy and they are not enjoying it, they leave the extreme of that behavior. And that also changes the perception of the whole family system that they think that they have built in terms of the virtues and all that. So the unit system is very, very important, blending what society will give to children and what the moral conscience of that family is in terms of the basic thing that must build the life of a child. But once you fail at that level, I can tell you on authority that children, if you fail at the family level, children will learn from the environment. Environment will give something to children and they will live by it. And
failure will be what? Failing to provide their needs, failing to teach them the values, the proper values.
Value system. Yes. And the basic thing that drives children in doing some of these things has to do with their basic needs. One is shelter, accommodation, and then participation. And it's one of the things that we've taken for granted. A lot of parents do not have time to even engage with their children. And when children begin to ask certain questions, they feel that they are getting to the arena of bad behavior. Therefore, the response that they give to children is more like, so if you ask your parent that what is juju, I'm sure you will get the answers that they will give you, because they will be wondering, why should you, as a child, know about what is juju? But if you spend time to explain to the child what it is, the child will get it right. And that is what many of us will feel.
So that, what you're saying is very key. So that, so for instance, there should have been an opportunity for the children to go to their parents or any elders to talk about how we can better our lives other than through criminality.
Exactly, because children develop. At a certain stage, every stage of children's life, they develop. And that development comes with a certain level of information. So if they get to that level and they are asking certain questions, then you should be able to provide that question to satisfy their developmental stages. But if you fail to do that, and they move from one level to the other without having a clear understanding of what that level brings, then it means that they are compiling it. That's what psychologists will tell you, that most of us have a generational gap because there are certain behaviors. For instance, if you go to a playground where children play and you see an adult exhibiting that character of playing, then it tells you that there has been, at a certain level of that person's life, there has been a gap, that the person is now realizing that I must fill that gap. So there are a lot of people behave in a certain way that should give you a clear point that no, these people lack certain things. And for me, if you're able to address some of these little things, it builds the confidence of people or children, and they are able to tell the story as it is.
Very well. I'll bring in at this point Adib Sani, and your perspective is an interesting one. This is a heinous crime committed by teenage boys. Everybody is in shock. Everybody is surprised. I would want to hear your comments on it, but I would also at some point want to hear the Kaswa factor, the economic situation as well, and how that pushed or drove them to this desperation and the use of a criminal option to try and better their lives. You may have a go at it.
Before I come to that, when Bright was speaking, it reminded me of something. The first time I heard the word impotence, I was young and I was watching TV with my two sisters. So someone mentioned impotent. Then my other sister asked the other one, what is it? So I saw them giving eye signals to the fact that I'm around, so she would not say it until I leave. So I kept wondering, what is it they are hiding from me? What I have the right to know. What? So in the end, I found out from outside. And I remember, again, I was performing ablution while singing, "Let's Talk About Sex, Baby." Then my elder brother in Hausa, Wakam Banzaki, what dirty song is that? Without explaining to me. And fighter jets, the first time I saw a fighter jet, I asked an adult, and I still remember vividly, why is this plane so little? And he said, they are for birds. He said it jokingly, and I stood by it for years. I went to school, no, it cannot be for humans. They are for birds. And it's particularly interesting these days, the level of exposure the children have. Look, when you're speaking at home, they are like spy mics. Whatever you say, they pick it up when you listen. So I don't play. I don't play.
But you are raising an interesting point about the certain conversations. I wouldn't want to say we lie to, but we are economical with the truth when we are communicating with children. Mostly it's to protect them.
The child.
But it's turning out to bite us.
Exactly, because I was watching a documentary on porn. Young people going to act scenes and take $1,000. And most of them said when they were growing up, their parents were economical with the information. And they didn't have the full information. They got it from outside. And that is how they ended up in the adult film industry. Sometimes we feel they are kids. I mean, they don't know. But you cannot underestimate today's children. Maybe our time was different, because at age 16, all that I cared about was playing soccer. And,
today there's social media, there's voluminous information. And before you start, before you get into the Kaswa factor, please hold on. I have Minister Kojo Oppong-Nkrumah on the line. I don't know if it's video or it's telephone, but Minister, if you can hear me, good morning, and thanks for joining us. First of all, I'd just like to take your reaction to this heinous tragedy that Ghana has been confronted with. 2 teenage boys taking the life of an 11-year-old boy in the most I don't even have the word for it, the most horrific manner.
Good morning to you and to your colleagues in the studio and to the viewers as well. I think first we should express our condolences to the family of the deceased. And even our, may I say, our pity to the family of the accused persons, because if what we are hearing is true, these are supposed to be persons who are under 18 and for some reason have been exposed to some particular behavior and have been, or have found themselves involved in a dastardly act of this nature. And our sentiments and our hearts should go out to all of the children involved, albeit in different shades. That suggest that all of this is of one thing and one thing alone, which is exposure to media content of an inappropriate nature. And I respectfully will disagree with that. I do not think that there's a single cause or a single solution to this particular phenomena or incident. Yes, you would find places where you can lay blame on media content, but I think if you are doing a proper scan, you would also find room to realize that there are challenges with parenting. There are challenges even with law enforcement, because again, from what we are hearing, some of the, at least one of the accused persons has had a previous brush with the law, and we ask questions of how was that handled, was the juvenile system properly triggered in a manner that prevents any further infractions of this nature. So there's a multiplicity of factors that I think we ought to look at. And in that same vein, there will be a multiplicity of potential solutions that we ought to look at. One, yes, looking at media regulation, but also other aspects like parenting, etc.
Yes, and that's the conversation we are having today, Minister. We're looking at how parenting, how there's been a gap in parenting. We're looking at economic factors, religious factors, and for you, we want to look at the broadcasting bill, which many believe could help to tackle the aspects of media. That doesn't mean that all those other factors will not be looked at or solutions will not be sought for them, but for the content, for the conversation about content regulation, this is where we would like to find out the status of the broadcasting bill.
So on that subject, let me make a couple of comments. First, I don't subscribe to the view that everything must be swept under the carpet of the broadcasting law, that in the absence of a broadcasting law, we are totally handicapped and unable to handle challenges of this nature. I respectfully disagree with the proponents of that view. I am very firmly of the view, and I've expressed same since 2020, even formally to the National Media Commission and some other state regulatory agencies, that there is enough legislation today to deal with some of these infractions. In February 2020, we had cause to draw the attention of the National Media Commission and the Bank of Ghana to this particular practice that was growing on our television and media outlets, and extensively sent them notice to the effect that this was ongoing and that they needed to take note and act within the confines of Article 167P and Section 2 of the NMC Act. Both regulatory agencies responded to us positively and never told us at the time that they did not have enough laws to deal with. The Bank of Ghana, if you recall, and if your researchers will just dig it up for you, issued a directive to media houses quite clearly on the exercise of doubling currency, which is a product of the bank's work. And the bank, if I may use the expression loosely, is the custodian of the proprietary rights of our currency, if I may use that expression loosely. The bank issued a directive to media houses to ensure that they complied. There's a genuine question on whether or not the bank followed through and took any steps beyond that. But at least the bank responded in that first instance. And then the NMC also responded. In fact, wrote back to me that they were engaging with the Ghana Independent Broadcasters Association and some of the DTH satellite providers to clamp down on this action. Again, there's a question about whether or not they actually carry through. But you'll find that within the Bank of Ghana Act, within the NMC legislation, within the National Communication Authority Act, if you look at the NCA Act, if I just may reference part of that to you, Section 3D of Act 769, they have enough powers to collaborate among themselves and clamp down on activities of this nature. So I'll come to the question of the broadcasting law, which has a place, but with the greatest of respect, it ought not to be said that in the absence of the broadcasting law, all of these regulatory agencies are stopped or handicapped and can do absolutely nothing. In fact, there have been times when they have acted. In the case, for example, of Radio Tong in the Volta region, where the NCA, acting in accordance with Act 769, shut that station down because they were broadcasting content that was against national security interest. And the media house attempted to go to, I think, the Tong District Court, if I'm correct, or the Ho High Court, to get a resolution. And the courts did not look favorably on that application. The courts sided with the National Communication Authority. There have been constitutional, may I say, applications to the courts in the absence of procedural legislation under Article 21(1)(f).
Hello, Kojo.
I have a right to this piece of
Kojo, the network is the network from your end.
Yes, can you hear
Kojo,
me?
can you hear me? So just go back 5 seconds because the network was freezing a bit, and so we couldn't get what you were saying.
Okay, so I'm saying that there have been times when these regulatory bodies and other persons have tested even the raw constitutional provisions in the absence of proper procedural legislation, and the courts have sided with them. So I want to be quite clear that there is legislation today that allows them to stop this act from continuing, because even as we've been discussing it this week, it is still ongoing until now. The broadcasting law has gone through its draft stages and I think a good chunk of consultation. We are looking forward to laying it before Parliament in May when Parliament resumes. And what it will do is to plug some of the loopholes or the grey areas, the area of legislation. And if we have some time, we can engage on that.
Kojo, so you make the point that there's adequate laws to address some of these challenges. Is it that the enforcement then has not been adequate?
That is the view I share.
And how do we move on from here then, given that, for instance, these money doublers and these conjuring actors on the TV are still, plying their trade, because we're running a kind of TV that allows room for anything?
So I think that what the society needs to do is to put a lot more pressure on these regulators, first of all, because Chapter 12 of our Constitution treats media freedoms in a very special way. And that is why we do not even allow, whether it's the policymaker, like the ministry, or others to get involved in it. And that's why there are specific regulators that are responsible for it. And all of us need to direct a bit more pressure on these regulators to act. I think on the 15th, we are calling a consultative meeting of all of these regulators and actors to push them some more to act, because within the current legal framework, they can and they have acted in times past. But I think it is between these two levels that we can move forward currently, where we as a society call on and push these regulators to act, because regulators by their nature are independent. Even government cannot instruct them so to do. But we need to continuously urge them to act and be strong in that urging. And from our end, working with the Communications Ministry on the 15th, we're having a consultative meeting with them, again, to push them some further to act, because it is within their power to act now. But we will proceed to work on the broadcasting law, which will block some of the loopholes. For example, what is broadcasting? within the confines of Act 769, broadcasting is defined in a particular way. But for media purposes, what is broadcasting? For example, when you are transmitting on social media, on Facebook, are you broadcasting? What ought to be your obligations when you are broadcasting on social media? Even when it comes to, let's say, comments that people make, which for some theorists actually amount to a part of that broadcasting. It's as though you activated your phone lines and somebody got on your phone lines to, through your channel, broadcast ethnocentric and other unacceptable content. Would it be acceptable under comments on Facebook when you broadcast on Facebook? So there are bits of gray area that the broadcasting law deals with. What is a collaboration between NMC and NCA when it comes to regulation of media content? What is the legal basis on which NMC can now promulgate new subsidiary legislation for the purpose of regulating content which will not be against the Constitution? Those are things that the broadcasting law will deal with. But respectfully, the kind of challenges we're having now, it is well within the rights of the NMC working with the NCA and the BOG and other security agencies to deal with it, and we shouldn't mince words about that.
And Kojo, I'd like to put this to you. You formerly worked in the media as well as host of Joy FM Super Morning Show. For that part of you, or that part of your body as a broadcaster some time back, how responsible do you think the media should feel in contributing to social or society's menaces?
Well, without a society, without a democracy, without a country, there will be no media to operate. And so our first obligation is to ensure that the society, the democracy, the nation succeeds. And in that enterprise, our job ought to be to do the things like you are doing this morning that promote the cause of the broader society. And that includes ensuring that things that contribute to moral decadence or to criminality or to activities that draw the country back, we do not promote or we do not do things that help them flourish. We have a responsibility in that area. But of course, media also involves creativity. And so you would find some of our colleagues who would even disagree with that and say, well, we are only showcasing what's going on in society, even if it is for news purposes, or we are just showcasing creativity, even if it's just for creativity purposes in a movie, etc. But we need to do all of these things in a manner that does not end up promoting such activities that are not in the interest of the growth of our society.
Okay, before I let you go, I'd just like to get your take on this culture that has emerged, the hustling culture, where everybody wants to get rich or die trying. What's your take on that?
Well, let me flip it around. Nobody wants to be poor. But we as a society need to go back to a conversation on what our values are, the kind of society we want to create. And an exercise that engenders some civics and some national orientation about what is acceptable in our society and what we should aspire to in our pursuit of not being poor. In America, they'll tell you about the American dream, and they'll continuously sell it in a manner that is supposed to encourage a lot more people to be on the straight and narrow so that they are not poor. I think what we are doing is that the consciousness with which we have to engineer the values of our society is what collectively we have dropped over the years. Switch on your television, switch on your radio, get onto social media, and more often than not, it's either about political attacks or ridicule of everything that we want to do in this country. And not enough room to grow our value system, not enough room to have those conversations that make us better off in a sustainable manner. And I think it's an opportunity for reflection for all of us, the governed and the governor, the civil society, media, faith-based groups, to reflect and reset that conversation.
Okay, thank you very much, Kojo. That's Kojo Oppong Nkrumah, Minister for Information, joining us on this conversation. Interesting perspective from him. He talks about a plethora of existing laws that should be tackling this idea, concept of regulating media. He also gave us a status update with the broadcasting bill, and we got his personal opinions or personal thoughts on the topic for today. We've also been talking to Bright Appiah of Child Rights International, and Bright made some major points, raised some major points with parenting and the gaps in parenting. And of course, our psychiatric, Mr. Yentumi, also, put it into perspective how much the media is influencing the mind and human conduct as a result of that. The legal perspective was also brought to you by lawyer Benjamin Antiedu, who gave us some education with regards to juveniles and prosecution. Adib Sani has touched a bit on also interesting conversations that parents have with their children, being economical with the truth to protect them. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll get into the security angle of this conversation and the issue with Kaswa. But let me read a few messages before we go. Oh, and I forgot, Madame Linda also, and I like the way she's laughing. I mean, how could I forget the only lady here? Madame Linda also spoke to how the media has covered this horrific national tragedy. She did commend the media and also talked about some key learning with the identities of the minors, which lawyer Antiedu also alluded to. Thank you, my guests. Before we go for the break, let me just read these few messages. So, Nane Kuya from Kaswa says, what really is the problem with some TV stations? Why would you even allow yourself to be used by the devil? May God save us all. Can't we just shut all these stations down? Why are they still even operating? Oh, Ghana, Pakwesi from Insaweme. Pakwesi, you heard the information minister talk about, is it Benjamin Article 12 of the Constitution, where there's a certain right, the media has a certain freedom, so we can't just go around shutting people down, but we have to find a balance where we can regulate their activities. Another message with no name says, if I were the parent, I would have taken my own action. Well, no. That's why there are laws in this country. Ghana, dear, no. I understand your frustration, but all of us cannot take the law into our own hands. This is Inside Pages. We are having a conversation about getting rich or dying while you try. We are assessing ourselves as a society and why we've reached the point where we're all met with a horrific tragedy of 2 teenage boys killing an 11-year-old boy. We'll be right back after this break.
Inside Pages is brought to you by Appointed Time Printing Limited.
Yes, welcome back to Inside Pages. Just before I bring in Adib Sani, I just want to go over our topics. Today is a huge, it's heavily packed all sorts of conversations. Our topic for today is get rich or die trying. Why are we obsessed with making money, sometimes at all costs? And can we exist in a capitalist world without money? The desire for a quick buck is a major fallout from the recent Kasoa murder. How did we get here? We've been talking about family and parenting, education, religion, media, the fake lifestyle we see on social media, and has our greed reached pathological levels? Okay, so Adib, now I'll bring you in to talk about Kasoa. Help us understand the security situation in Kasoa. And I'm asking this because of a conversation I had this week about a number of recurring crimes or continuous crimes in that community. Every community has its fair share, but what's peculiar about Kasoa?
Well, Kasoa is an interesting case. I have personally.
Can you? Yes, thank
Sorry.
you.
Okay. Kasoa is an interesting case. I've personally done some research in the area, and I've also been a victim of crime in the area. I remember some time ago, we went for the weekend, and the criminals are so emboldened that, look, where we're staying, the bedroom is the last room, and it's a very long stretch. The criminal was able to come in, broke into the room, and was lying under our bed. My wife woke up to shower. Usually she wakes up very late to shower, and the criminal was lying under our bed with babies lying beside him. Because obviously you don't want the babies to be on the bed because they might roll and fall. And she went into the washroom. He was able to pick our phones, and it was at the point of exit. It's like they used subterfuge of some sort that I woke up and he was able to get away with it, not knowing they had come in laps, come fetch, go, then return. We reported to the police. And apparently the police knew the address. But to date, nobody has shown face. So that brings us to the first issue, the culture of impunity. That's what it's developing. It's a melting pot of activities made up of people from various backgrounds across the length and breadth of the country and even beyond. Because there are reports that points to the fact that some wanted Nigerian fugitives seek refuge in Ghana, either in Kasoa or Ashama.
This is because of the Bujumbura camp.
Yes, Bujumbura is part. Obviously, at the height of the Liberian conflict in the 1990s, Ghana, as part of its commitment, the first commanding officer of ECOMOG in Liberia is General North Kwenu. He's a Ghanaian. So we accepted some refugees. But since they have been repatriated, we still have a whole lot of them there. And they've even become landlords, selling lands at that place. And there's quite, a huge Nigerian population in that area. Kasoa is growing by the day, because I was just reading the statistics. In 1984, the population was about 2,500. 2010, it grew to about 67,000. So you can imagine, when there's a new census, the number of people you would see coming up. Kasoa has met Accra. In the past, on your way to Kasoa, you see vast lands. Nobody occupies. But it has met. Now, people even go beyond Kasoa, beyond Bujumbura, whilst working at the ministries. So on a daily basis, they shuttle. So that should tell you how big Kasoa has grown. Unfortunately, in considering the development amidst the infrastructure, the roads, and all that, we didn't really give credence to security. And in security studies, we say it changes. Yesterday's insecurity is not as today. Because of new issues, because of new actors, because of
rising
new weapons.
Population.
Because now rape is a weapon of crime. Because of new interests, it is changing by the day. So we cannot use yesterday's methods to address the security challenges in Kasoa. And in criminology, we have what we call rational choice. Before someone perpetrates a crime, a potential criminal, he is deemed sane and can juxtapose and make sense of the reward factor and the risk factor. It's common sense. So if the person feels that it is more rewarding to perpetrate this crime, he does it without flinching. But if he feels that if I perpetrate this crime, the probability that I'll be caught is very high, the person is disincentivized from even perpetrating the crime in the first place. And that is what where situational crime prevention comes in. We are supposed to create an environment where it will not be rewarding to perpetrate a crime by improving crime and investigation. Most of the reports sent to the police, not much is done. Look, they are handicapped. Some of them are not experienced enough. They come to the crime scene. When the criminals came, they left a torch. I was like, this is DNA, this is fingerprints, but they don't know it.
You were in Ghana.
When they come, they don't hold gloves. I remember some time ago, they seized some AK-47s in Kumasi. They paraded before the media. I saw the police handling it. I said, no, the criminals can say, no, it's not ours. No, perhaps it belongs to the police, because the police also have their fingerprints on it. So it is really disturbing. We need to improve. We need to digitize crime and investigation. We have a lot of silos, digital silos, as in systems. For instance, if you're going for a passport, they take your biometrics. If you're going for the voter's ID card, and a whole lot, national health, and they are in silos, we can bring all these systems together and under strict conditions, make it available to the police. So at least they start using biometrics as a means to investigation. Hopefully in the future, like other jurisdictions do, we'll start using DNA technology. We need to share intelligence with other countries. So if someone is wanted in Nigeria, we would know in Ghana. So before they come in, we are already aware of them. We'll be waiting for them. Unfortunately, that is not what is happening. And that is part of the issues in Kasoa. And parenting is also key. You go out there in the streets, you see a lot of minors all over the place, late at night. Let anything happen to any one of them. You see the parents emerging from the shadows and calling for justice and granting interviews left, right, center. So we really need to consider that. As a matter of fact,
thing you bring on board in terms of security, and it makes me think about my own personal experience. I've noticed that when I'm driving late in the night, around 10 p.m., 9 p.m., 11 p.m., thereabouts, there are young boys on the streets. They are perching by the traffic lights. And so when it turns red and you stop, and especially if you're a woman, they're very aggressive, hitting your mirror, your glass window, trying to open your door, using all sorts of inappropriate language at you. The thought for me is that won't this aggression build up, and won't a time come where it will not be enough for them to merely verbally harass me or assault me and make the assault then physical, or for anybody driving, really?
Yes, they can harm you. I know of a journalist, a very popular journalist, who was driving somewhere around the Tetekwashi Medina stretch. And one of those boys was able to put his hands into the car and picked her bag containing her laptop. Some of them can be very abusive. I mean, at the point I had to step out of the car, also had to be aggressive because it was just getting too much. But nobody seems to be doing much about this, and it is quite disturbing. The La Paz stretch too is very noted for that. That's why I advise people to try as much as they can, especially when they are in traffic, to roll up the glasses, even if it is not to the very top. Make it such that no one can put a hand into the car. And also doors, automatically, that's why the white man, when they make the vehicle, once you put it on drive, it locks.
But I feel at some point that will not be enough.
Well, we have to deter. You get me? We would have to investigate. We would have to prosecute. We would have to make it not sound attractive to perpetrate crime in the first place.
Okay.
And with specificity to the Kasoa incident, look, there are situations where criminals will perpetrate, because I know of one incident like that. The armed robbers, after attacking the victims, instead of them hurrying to leave, you know what they did? They waited for the police to arrive. Yes. And they ambushed the police. They proved to them, yes, we are the men.
In a gun battle?
We have gun. Because they have the better firepower. You get me? And the local gun manufacturing is also part of the problem, because
so it's like a sport for them.
Sorry?
It was like a sport, just to entertain themselves.
Exactly.
This is horrific.
So, I mean, that should prove to you how emboldened these criminals have come. Meanwhile, the criminals who broke into our home in Kasoa to pick the phone, I was able to track the phone after 8 months. They weren't using it. After 8 months, I used some secret means, and I led a police operation to Kaswa. And we're able to, using a lady, who posed as a student, we're able to track these criminals to a pharmacy at Kaswa, just under the new overhead. But it's a mobile phone stealing syndicate posing as a pharmacy. So when one of the gentlemen met the lady, the police were going to pass and said, no, take your time, maybe he's not alone. And truly, he wasn't alone. There was another one behind. So they asked the lady, oh, follow us. So they followed, and I asked the lady to give me a sign when it is time for us to swoop. So when they went into the pharmacy, we were able to see them. Then at the point of them removing the phone to show to her, then we pounced. If we had pounced on them earlier, they wouldn't even have had the phone on them. And we wouldn't have been able to get them all. So Kaswa is quite an interesting case. It is a stubborn case that requires stubborn tactics to be able to deal with.
Wow. Well, that's interesting. For the next, in the last 20 minutes of the program, we'll put across a Zoom link for you to join the conversation. What we want to do is have a conversation about the power situation in the country right now. There's been intermittent power outages across the country. We've heard justifications that we are not in doomsday. There are works being done here and there. But what we want you to do is to tell us the situation, the electricity situation in your neighborhood. It will be interesting to call, get connected on the Zoom, tell us where you are and tell us the situation and how bad it is for you. And hopefully that may turn things around by the managers of this country. But right now, I'd like to take concluding remarks from my guests on this topic. What I want us to conclude on, really, looking at all the angles that we've explored, from parenting to the media content to our conversation on the law, really, how do we go forward? Or how do we tackle this decadence that's the quest for money is leading us or has led us into? And I'll start with you, Bright.
Well, after the quest for money, everybody would want to. But the process is what I think that we need to engage the minds of our children on, so that we don't equate money to wealth. We don't equate it to flashy cars that people drive all the time. We don't equate it to the physical appearance of people to say that, okay, if you live this kind of lifestyle, then you are rich and all that. Those are the communications that I feel we should make known to our children. And then also to add that, yes, we've lost a child who has a potential. We've also gotten 2 children in the hands of the law. And I would plead with the system to take the children to our juvenile trial system, so that whatever it is that we need to do, we do it. And the evidence that are coming out is not so, I'm not so happy with it, because when it comes to the trial of children, one of the things that is critical in the process has to do with the social inquiry report on these 2 children, which, as we speak, the investigation is still in the hands of the police without necessarily involving the social welfare to be able to obtain that social inquiry report. And if we are able to get that social inquiry report, we will have clear understanding of the behavior of these children and then prescribe the needed remediation for it and all that. So I want society to begin to reflect on the things that we do. And then also with the media, the fact that the media would want to do things in a certain way. You know, we and the Ghana Journalists Association developed a Child Protection Code of Ethics some time back. And we expect that the media would also look at it from that angle and then also begin to push it. So let's see how best we can all work together, okay, to protect our children.
Okay. I'll bring Philip in the U.S. in. Philip, you're the psychiatrist. Let's have your concluding remarks.
Thank you very much. And in concluding, I will want to make some pointers, right, so that we all think about it as a society. When Honorable Kojo Oppong-Nkrumah was talking, he made mention about certain factors that is not just limited to a bill or a law. And I also want to chime in on that one. Now, morality and ethics, how well are we promoting that as a society? The issue of wealth versus worth, right? The issue of how much do you have versus what values you have. How well are we promoting that as a society? As an individual, if you ever shared, posted videos of where people are flaunting money and people are using, we believe that they use juju or any money doubling means in getting rich. If we are posting and sharing these videos, we are contributing to these factors that we are all talking about now. So let's be careful, let's be mindful of anything that we share on our various platforms. Yes, it's your platform, but then whatever you do on there does impact somebody else, including your WhatsApp status, okay? Then the other thing is our institutions. When people are claiming to be rich and have these houses and these cars, is IRS going over there, after them? Because in the States, if you are to do that, be ready for question, right? So is IRS going after them to inquire about, hey, okay, if you're making this much, are you paying taxes? Are you really following the laws in making this money? So these things are some of the things that we have to really look into. And then the issue of instant gratification. I always say that now a kid wants to be richer than the grandma who has worked for over 60 years. Okay. Now, I agree totally. Nobody wants to be poor and nobody really wants to die poor. But then the thing is, how do you progressively make that effort in getting rich or being sustainable? We have to realize that in acquiring wealth is progressive and it's not instant. Anything at all that comes instantly does not last. Now, back to how the minds are shaped up and then how we are influenced by the society, we have to realize that no matter how much time that you spend with an individual, the level of exposure by external forces does impact the person. So it is true that we have the principal responsibilities as parents to raise our kids. But let's also realize that what other people do does affect us and our children. There are so many things that we were taught and told growing up, but due to external exposures, now our perception about those things has moved. Therefore, what somebody else does concerns me. If not, what to come back to bite us.
Very well. I'll come to you, Madam Linda. And I added the madam because I'm in debt, so I'm trying to pacify you.
We'll talk about that later. You know, I think that the moral upbringing of our children should be a collective thing. You know, we shouldn't leave that in the hands of parents alone. Mm-hmm. We all have a role to play. If we remember, years back, a neighbor can discipline my child. But now it is not so. Yeah. You dare not, you know, criticize a child in your neighborhood who is going wayward. Mm-hmm. How dare you? And I think this is something that we have to go back, you know, and pick up, you know, that kind of culture. Now we talk about nuclear family, no more extended family, where an auntie can discipline my child, where a neighbor, just a neighbor, you know. But I think that at that time, it was really helping us, you know. Now we are leaving the discipline of children only in the hands of parents. And I remember one of the panelists talking about the fact that parents leave home very early, we come back home very late. Mm-hmm. We do not know within that period what our children do. Mm-hmm. If the child is not in a boarding school. Nowadays, we even drop our children as early as 5:30, you know, in schools because we really want to beat traffic. And as to what the child does at that period, from that 5:30 till about 7 or 7:30 when school starts, within that period, what would the child be doing is none of our business. We don't even care. And I think that despite the fact that we are doing our bits, it should be a collective thing. Society should come around and then take this whole thing up. And then for our media, we should be mindful of the content that we put out there. I think there's something that we are not talking about. Children see various individuals as role models, musicians, the musical videos that we put out there, springing, you know, monies here and there. I would want to be like those musicians when I grow up. Does it mean that when I grow up, the way I'm seeing him throwing money around, I have to find ways and means of also doing same, you know, when I grow up? So we need to be mindful of the content that we put out there. Media owners should be concerned about what goes on at their various, you know, media stations. Okay. And I think that we have ethics binding the profession, and we should seriously, you know, bind by that. Our activities should be binded by those professional ethics of the profession. Okay. And I think that though we have laws, implementation has been a problem. Let us implement the laws that we have to the letter. Very well. I think collectively when we do that, we'll be heading somewhere.
Very well. Adib, I'll come to you.
Madam Vice President is my boss at GJ. Bright. When I was very little, I used to be a member of the Child Rights Club. Bright Appear
Senior. It's a family reunion.
A certified one for that. Wow. He used to come to Tamale.
It's true.
He used to come to Tamale very often. And whilst I was sitting here, I was secretly admiring Benjamin and, you know, his books. It's quite inspiring. I have law degree 101, so I'm hoping to be inspired this morning. So I'll pursue that. But I have a message for parents. They have to, as a matter of urgency, put in place certain protocols to protect their families. I have a security company, and it takes me the world to convince people to invest in security. You know why? Because we feel insecurity is far away from us. Mm-hmm. I remember when Professor Bennett was killed at East Legon. You wouldn't believe the number of clients I got from that area. We wait until something happens before we start running helter-skelter. We are so reactive rather than being proactive to issues of security. Let us involve the children in the security maintenance process. Look, I am so close with my children. And one secret to our viewers, when your child tells you something, don't be shocked. As shocked as you may, immerse yourself in the issue and make it look normal, then you can now correct the child. Okay. But immediately you show shock, the child will not tell you. Look, my children, my 5-year-old, she tells me everything that happened. Even her elder brother, if he sneezes at school, Daddy, my elder brother sneezed in school today.
So that's for parents. And sorry to butt in, but I'm trying to manage the time right now because we have to do the Zoom. But quickly wrap up on the security.
Yes. Immediately the child leaves the school exit, all the way to the entrance of your home, he's in danger from predators, pedophiles, kidnappers, etc. Let's involve them in that process. Okay. Let's educate the children. When someone knocks at the door, teach them, never ever open the door to anyone except mommy or daddy. Even if you have to, it has to be with the tacit approval of mommy and daddy. Let's involve them as much as we can.
Benjamin, quickly, I'll come to you.
Yes, thank you very much. And I must say that I like the very expansive discussion, not limiting it to the instance that has occurred. That's the normal practice, but now we tend to go very far. That is great. But quickly, talking about the plethora of laws regarding media work and all, as the minister said, we may also want to look at other related laws so that holistically we can deal with the matter. Mm-hmm. The mention has been made of Section 137 about satanic advertisements and all that. You see, this law was made in 1960. You talk about even the fine regime, and it's not exceeding 500,000 cedis. 500,000 cedis. So I'm sure it should be about 50 Ghana cedis today.
Yes, that's in the old currency.
So you look at these. Yes, it's good to pass the broadcasting bill, but in criminal jurisprudence, if you have more than one offense in the laws, then you can prosecute under one of them. So a prosecutor may choose the lesser regime and go by it. So if you are doing it, we must do it more carefully and more holistically.
Very well.
And deal with it in all its diverse forms. Thank you.
Very well, thank you. I'm grateful to my guests. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm grateful. Right now, though, we'll go for a break. But before that, I want to share the Zoom meeting ID and pass with you so that when we come back, we'll take Ghana Moment. And Ghana Moment will lead us into the Zoom conversation. So it's on your screen. Yeah, great. I don't have to read it. It's displaying on the screen. You can quickly pick it up, and we'll go for a break, come back for Ghana Moment. Ghana Moment is really about Dumso. So we'll go for the break, come back for the Ghana Moment, and then we'll have the conversation about the power situation where you are. Stay with us.
Indeed, we are dealing with a situation already. Let me make a distinction between what Ghanaians call dumso, that is outages. We have two phenomena. We have load management, which used to be called load shedding, and we have outages. Load shedding is implemented when the amount of power is insufficient to meet the demand. Outages are the common occurrences that happen with overloaded transformers or blasted cables or something like that. So there are two differences. What we're going through currently is a load management or load shedding, if you prefer to call it that, created by an act of God. A ship's anchor broke the West African gas pipeline and knocked out 320 megawatts of our generation. And so it means that suddenly 320 megawatts is taken out of the system. And so at peak levels, our demand exceeds what we have currently. And so you have to spread the load so that it does not take out the system. That's what's going on. That would end by mid-November. The pipeline has been repaired. The seawater has been pumped out. The pipeline is being dried for transmission of gas to begin again. Now, what it means is that there's an imperative for us to develop our own gas resources, which we are doing. Gas from Ghana's oil fields is going to be on stream next year. And that should provide sufficient gas for us to power our thermal plants. We are putting in additional thermal generation to increase generation to ensure that load shedding becomes a thing of the past. And I have said as president, but that by the end of the first year of my next term in office, load shedding will be a thing of the past because we're going to add 820 new megawatts of generation into our system.
Dumso has ended through the improvement of financing, generation, transmission, and distribution of electrical power.
So that's a Ghana moment. We heard from the former President John Mahama in 2012 and also President Akufo-Addo in 2018, where we understood or were told that Dumso has ended. Let's get on Zoom right now. I know many of you have called into Metro News' Zoom, and who do we have? Hello?
Hello.
Yes, so good morning. Tell us your name and where you live.
I'm Stanley. I'm Stanley from Medina.
Stanley, tell us about the electricity situation in Medina.
Currently now, the electricity in Medina is very cool, but I think for a week now, we're having some shortages in our electricity. There's always, I think, low current.
How about power outages?
The power outages it's not really bad. It's not really bad. Yes, it's not really bad for now. I think we had a power shortage for about not less than 10 hours.
And how are you managing the situation with the power outages and also the low current you mentioned?
For now, with the low current, we are really concerned about appliances because we are thinking that maybe it can affect our plans. So we are taking care of our plans very well.
I hope so far you haven't lost anything yet.
Oh, so far, no, we haven't. We haven't lost anything yet.
Okay, and for residents of Medina, give us an idea how people are feeling about this, the outages and then the low currents, which could potentially destroy equipment.
As you already know, like Medina is really concerned about this political system, and they are saying that the Akufo-Addo government is not really doing well, as he told us that there will be enough current and enough electricity in the system. But now we can see that the Dumso is starting.
Okay. Thank you very much for telling us about the situation in Medina. Let's see who else we have on Zoom. So the idea is to get you to tell us where you are, what the power situation is, the intermittent power outages going on. We've been told by GRADECO and also the Energy Ministry that we are not in a Dumso situation. There are some works going on. There are some projects underway, and that's why we are experiencing what we are experiencing. And that supply, there's enough supply, or demand hasn't gone over supply yet, and so we are not in a Dumso situation. It's been very unbearable for some people. It's been difficult for people to accept these justifications given their reality. An important factor is that, or important matter is I don't want to use the word Dumso, but a timetable to help people manage. If you're going to take the power, something that we pay for, you might as well tell us when, so that we can prepare. But these unplanned outages are not really helpful, and we're trying to engage people. Let me get to some of our messages that are coming to WhatsApp while we go to the next person. Good morning to everyone who is listening to this program. In fact, life is a bicycle. You need to paddle one side before the other. We need to be patient wherever we find ourselves to know the Almighty Allah put us there. But we should bear in mind that the rain that enables the tree to grow is green. It's the same rain that enables grass to grow green. Anyway, please extend my greetings to my exceptional Honorable Kojo Oppong Nkrumah for his excellent thought. And this is coming from Nuruddin Constitution from Northern Region. Okay, so for our callers on Zoom, we can see you, but you have to turn on your cameras so that we can know who we are talking to. We know you're on, you're connected, but kindly turn on your cameras. But that notwithstanding, let's take the next caller or the next Zoom caller. Hello. Yes, you're on air. Hello. You may have to also turn on your microphone. So unmute your microphone if you're, yes. Hello. On air. Hello. Okay. I will encourage our callers, our Zoom callers, to dress appropriately. So maybe if you're home, I know you're relaxing at home, but if you can put on a T-shirt. My producers are unable to put this particular collar on. So, sir, if you can put on a T-shirt quickly, and let's go to the next person then. Okay, so while we try and get the next person, and while this gentleman puts on his T-shirt, we've dedicated the last few minutes. We have about barely 10 minutes left to talk about the power situation. We're asking you to call into our Zoom and tell us about where you are and how the power situation is. We had one of our callers from Medina telling us about the outages. He said, 10 hours this week? And he talked about, or the week that's just gone by, he talked about low current, and the fear with the low current is that it could, destroy electronic appliances. We've heard the explanations that the managers of the power situation have been given, that there's no cause for worry because we are not in a doom situation, a doom-sort situation. There's adequate power. It's just some maintenance works going on. We have somebody ready now. Hello, good morning.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. Tell us your name and where you're calling us from.
So my name is Alex Ado, calling from Latebiokoshi.
Okay, tell us about the electricity situation in Latebiokoshi. What's happening there?
I think that for us here, we've been spared much of the troubles that others are facing. Just a moment. Sometimes we get low current and all that, but it's not as bad as the rest of the nation or as others are complaining.
Sometimes you get low current. Do you also get the outages?
Yes, so the ones that occurred nationally, I think about a week ago on Saturday to Sunday, the light went off at dawn, and then the one that happened previously, and then about a week or 2 weeks ago, they did some maintenance work on some of the lines here. The ones where our lights were out for about close to 14 hours. So, those are the main ones we've experienced, aside the low current that we get once in a while.
What's the sense in Latebiokoshi? How do people feel about the outages? You say it's not so bad, and plus the low current. How do people feel about it?
Well, I'm not too sure how people feel about it, but I can speak for myself. I think that the government has to come clear on this and tell us exactly what's happening. I, for example, don't think that the government is being honest about the current situation. And so there's a certain sense of distrust when it comes to what the government communique is to us. Because it's very unbearable to be in a situation where there's no light for 14 hours, 13 hours. The heat is almost unbearable. You can't really do much, without the light on. So it's a very precarious situation for us.
Okay. Okay, that's the situation in Latebiokoshi. Let's get another Zoom caller. Hello.
Hello.
Yes, hello. Tell me your name and where you are coming from.
My name is Adingo Francis, calling from Bolgatanga.
Great. How is the power situation in Bolgatanga?
Actually, the power situation in Bolga is not different from where the previous callers are saying.
Latebiokoshi, Medina.
We're thinking that we being down here going to be a little bit better, but the situation is very bad in Bolga, and it is more than the word for it, as you say.
So tell me, for this week, how has it been? How often has the lights gone off or the current gone low? Help me understand. Hello? Okay, did we lose the gentleman from Bolgatanga? Okay, so it's interesting we touch on what? Bolgatanga, Latebiokoshi, Medina, and it's the story is the same. Okay, let's reconnect. Let's go back to Bolgatanga. I wanted to understand how, the week has been.
Yes, the areas around Este, Warungu, people slept in darkness. And I don't know, we don't have a timetable. They are not telling us anything. So we don't know when, as and when the lights will go off. Before you realize in your room is off. And the heat here is not easy. So people are really disappointed. And we don't just know what VRA is about. At least they should let us know the timetable so that when we know that this time, as and when they want, it goes off and it comes. It's a worrying situation.
Okay, Francis from Bolgatanga, thank you very much. I think we have time to take maybe one last connection via Zoom. Hello. Okay, that's it. I think we've been trying to assess, the power situation or the electricity situation. We'll leave it here. We've touched base with our audience from Bolgatanga, Latebio, Koshi, Madina. The story is similar. It's the same. Power outages, low current. People want answers. They are not satisfied with the reasons that have been given. People want a timetable to help them plan and organize their lives and also prevent some kind of destruction to their equipment. But this has been Inside Pages. We've had a fantastic and comprehensive conversation about a new culture in Ghana, getting rich or dying while we try. We've been assessing, a significant fallout from the unfortunate Kaswa killing. We've been talking about how our quest to make money and to do that fast may be leading us to some kind of pathological levels, and how we can stem that and try and backtrack. Also, we just got on Zoom to speak to people about the power situation because we heard former President Mahama, his assurance in 2012. We heard President Akufo-Addo in 2018 telling us Dumso is over. But the people don't feel that way. Let's take one more person before we go. Hello?
Hello?
Yes, I'm told I have one more person. Hello? Yes, tell us your name and where you're calling us from, madam.
I'm Cecilia, and I'm speaking from Chado.
Cecilia, tell us about Chado. How's the power situation, the electricity situation there?
For some time now, we have been having power outage here, but it's not often. And the last one I can remember was last week. It lasted for only 4 minutes, and it came back.
Okay.
But what I've noticed is that when I come back from work, my things in the fridge will be soft, like it's not freeze. So I think maybe when I'm out, we have power outage here, but when I'm home, I don't see it often.
I hope you haven't lost any electronic appliance yet. But what do you think the managers of the energy situation should be telling us? Do you think they should be giving us, for instance, a timetable to help us plan and prevent food going bad, equipment being blown up and all that?
Yes, I think they have to do that. But even I wish they can solve it so that they don't give us time that today or tomorrow your house will be out. I wish they can solve it for us, because it's not easy, especially if you don't have AC in your room and there's power out. It's very terrible. You can't sleep. You can't feel comfortable in your room. So okay. I wish the problem can be solved and they're giving us a timetable.
Yes, and that will be a common request by all Ghanaians, that the problem is solved once and for all so that we can get the value of what we pay for. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for calling from various parts of the country to tell us about the power situation. We're also grateful to our guests for today's discussion. We'll leave it here. I'm Francisca Kakra-Force, and thank you so much. Join us again on Inside Pages next Saturday. It's bye for now.
Inside Pages is brought to you by Appointed Time Printing Limited.